There's many kinds of notes that you want to exist, but you don't have to create them. That is exactly what Readwise does. This is a just mind-blowing treasure trove of knowledge. This one folder called Readwise. Why would I not save and preserve just the gems of insight, the nuggets of wisdom that these sources contain? I've really fought, I've pushed aside so many distractions, I've dedicated and invested so much high-quality attention to consume these in the first place. I don't usually recommend specific apps. My attitude is generally that they're interchangeable. But there is one product, there is one platform called Readwise that is different. You can almost think of it like a second brain companion. It is this critical, almost piece of infrastructure that you can install into your second brain ecosystem that is so powerful, so valuable that it is more or less irreplaceable. There's many kinds of notes that you want to exist. You want them to be created, but you don't have to create them. Isn't this kind of the whole point of technology, to save human effort? So think about the kinds of notes that you'd like to exist that you can automate, that you can have it happen in the background automatically with no effort, or more importantly, attention, that thing you already have so little of required from you. So think about the kind of most typical case, which is your reading. You read books, you read online articles, you read blog posts, you read newspaper articles. That kind of focused, aware reading, where you're not just reading a tweet or an Instagram caption, you're actually taking the time and space to sit down and really think about something, really take an idea seriously. That is a rare and precious experience. Now, what if, as you were reading, you could highlight the best parts, the most relevant parts, the most interesting parts, the most unusual and surprising parts, the parts that resonate with you personally? Well, you can. You're probably already familiar with this kind of feature, whether it's on a Kindle device and you put down your finger and you just move it across a sentence or a paragraph. What Readwise can do is basically sense or detect when you've made such a highlight. And within a few minutes of you making that highlight, it extracts just that piece of text, no more, no less, just the part that you highlighted, and it sends it, it exports it through the internet over to your note-taking app. And it can actually do that to any one of a dozen or more different note-taking apps, so you don't have to choose a specific note-taking app. So that's half of what Readwise does. That's the first major use case. You could call it highlight syncing. Finds your highlights, sends them to your notes app. And I did that for years. But in the past few years, Readwise has taken kind of the next step, a very exciting step, which is they have created what's called a Read Later app. A Read Later app, you can think of it like a digital reading list. Where do you put and where do you find all the things that you want to get to later? That article that is so interesting, but you don't have time to read it in the midst of your workday. Even other kinds of content, by the way, not just text. That YouTube video that is 30 minutes long or an hour long that demonstrates or teaches some very important thing you want to know, but you don't have time in the midst of your busy week to watch that. Save it to your Read Later app. It could be almost any online resource as long as it has a specific URL, a specific web address, can be added to your Read Later app. Now, why would you want to do that? Sounds kind of simple and obvious. You just compile a list of all the things you want to get to later. But this little act of it's just one button. It's actually a little plugin in your browser that just says save. As you go through your days and your weeks, just hitting save on things. What does that do? The benefits of that tiny little effortless action are really incredibly profound. One thing it does is it removes you from the distracting environment that is the internet. Most of the internet, if you think about it, especially social media, is not designed for calm, deep, purposeful reflection. It's exactly the opposite, right? You may find a fascinating, very in-depth piece of writing on social media, but if you really want to create the focused reading environment that's necessary, you have to take it out of that environment to a separate environment. In this case, a dedicated piece of software that is designed for that is clean, minimalistic. There's zero ads, zero distractions. You just put the content that you actually want to consume, that you want to put into your mind, in a place that supports that kind of consumption. The other thing that that does is it gives you a chance to step away from a piece of content that you thought at the moment would be useful and relevant, but often if you time shift it, if you save it in the afternoon and come back to it that evening, the next day, or days later, or weeks later, suddenly that little bit of time that has passed, even if it's just a few hours, suddenly gives you almost this sense of objectivity. You're able to see it in a new light. You're able to see it without the emotions and the feelings and the distractions of that moment. And often the effect of that is you realize you don't actually want to consume it at all. You actually gain wisdom about what is relevant and important. And what I find is I end up deleting, never even looking at maybe half of the stuff that I save in my Read Later app. And it's the half that is most clickbaity, most sensationalistic, most pointless, most full of hype. That's the stuff that I don't even want to be filling my mind anyway. Let me show you what this actually looks like. So I'm going to start by going to their website, which is readwise.io. The homepage is explanatory, showing you and explaining how Readwise works. But once you've created an account, you can go ahead and sign in. Once you sign in, you'll see your dashboard. Your dashboard is the list of all the different things that Readwise does, and it actually does a lot of things. It can be a little overwhelming, to be honest, but let me take you through just a couple of the features that I personally use. The thing to pay attention to here is the first section called Connect and Sync Highlights. This is the original way that I used this service, and the most important way that I continue to use it today. The terminology it uses is import and export. All this is saying is, where is the content coming from? What is the source? And then where is it going to? Where is the destination? So import, export, source, destination, reading, and note-taking. So I'm gonna go ahead and click import. And what you see here is a pretty extensive page of the many sources that Readwise can import from. Okay, I'm not gonna go through all of these, but some of these are podcast apps, our book review apps, annotation apps up here, RSS, which is a reading format apps, other Read Later apps such as Instapaper and Pocket. You can also import from email, from a CSV, from PDFs, all these different things. So I'll leave this to you to play with. I really only use one, which you'll see right up here, which is Kindle. I download pretty much all ebooks on the Kindle service, mostly, honestly, because it connects to Readwise. That's how important this is. So all I did is added Kindle as an import source, and then it appeared up here at the top where it says connected. And you can actually see that I need to click to reconnect. So once in a while, every few months or so, for reasons I don't understand, it goes out of connection. This is actually a great opportunity because I'm gonna show you what it looks like to sync Kindle with Readwise. So I'm gonna click right there. It will ask me to sign in to my Amazon account, and be sure to use the same Amazon account that you used to purchase the ebooks in the first place. Once you sign in to your Amazon account, this is what you will see. It's called your Notes and Highlights page. This is actually a page that is generated for any Amazon account. You have one if you've ever read an Amazon Kindle ebook. You can see the Kindle logo here in the corner. And what it does is it gets all your notes, which are little comments you've added using the note-taking, the annotation feature on Kindle, and your highlights, all the passages that you have designated. By the way, everything I'm showing you here also works both on Amazon Kindle devices, like the actual devices they sell, and it works on the Amazon Kindle app. That app is free, not just for Android, but for iOS. So you can really read an Amazon Kindle book on virtually any mobile device, and on your computer, by the way. So even if you don't have a mobile device, or you don't want to read on a mobile device, you can download the Kindle desktop app for Windows PC or Mac completely for free. The ebooks won't be free, but the software to read them, incredibly, is completely free. So what am I looking at here? If you look on the left, you'll see all the books that I've read on Kindle, and you can probably see there's a lot, there's hundreds. So I can actually click on any book that I've read in the past here on the left, and it will show me every one of the highlights I've made. In this case, This is the most recent book I've been reading. I have 64 highlights so far. You can see the passage I highlighted right here. There's the location, which I could use to look it up in the book if I needed to. Or even easier, I could click right here where it says options and open it directly to that page in the Kindle app so I can see it in context. This only works if you have the Kindle app installed on your same device. I could also add a note with my own thoughts or interpretations about this passage, or simply delete the highlight if I decide in retrospect it's not relevant. Now, you might be wondering at this point, isn't this good enough? Isn't this what we're trying to find in the first place? A compilation of all our different highlights? Yes and no. Yes, in that Amazon has already done most of the work. They've done a lot of work to surface all this information, but this interface is actually very limited. I can do a basic search, but not more advanced searches. I can't edit any of this. I can't add bold, underlining, highlighting. I can't really add my thoughts besides this little note thing, which isn't very useful. This is a read only. It's a consumption format, whereas notes really should be something interactive and, as the book you see on screen indicates, messy, right? So what we really need to do to get all those capabilities is to get this content into our Notes app. Now, you could just copy and paste them. I could just go here to the bottom, click and drag. Actually, no, I really can't. So it's funny, Amazon doesn't really make this easy. They don't want you to remove this content. They don't want you to take it anywhere because then you'd be less dependent on them. It's never really very easy to use. In this case, it doesn't even really look like I'm able to select the text. But even if I could, you really don't want to do this manually. If you do any kind of significant reading, not just do you want to avoid, all this meticulous copying and pasting, but sometimes if you're like me, you start reading a book and then life gets busy or your interests shift, so you put it aside and then come back to it later. With Readwise, it will pick up where you left off and begin syncing new highlights, even if months or years passes until you get back to that book. So you don't have to remember and remind yourself, oh, I picked up that book again. Let me go back, find the note in my note-taking app, just go to the bottom and keep copying and pasting my notes. Like, oh my God, please do not subject yourself to that suffering. What Readwise is doing in this case is just automating that entire process. So let me show you what this looks like for this one example, okay? So for the book, Messy, The Power of Disorder to Transform Our Lives, which is kind of a funny, a funny example for me to be using, I'm just going to copy the title so that I can do a search for it. And then we'll head over to Evernote. I'll go here to the search function. Actually, let's see if I just type Messy and then search everywhere. There is the result, Messy by Tim Hartford. So a couple things to notice. This note was created completely automatically. I've actually never opened this note. The Readwise service already got the title and the author put it in the title of this note. And then each paragraph you see here is a highlight. So for example, each of these passages might come from very different parts of the book. It separates them so you know that they're different by adding a paragraph separation right there. The other thing to notice is the location. So there's the number, location 82, and you can also click this link and it will actually open within the Kindle app. Another thing to notice is, see this date right here, it says updated. So what happened in this case is I started reading the book probably for an hour or two and took all the highlights up to here. And then I put it aside for a couple weeks. And when I picked up again, it automatically added this horizontal line as well as this date. This is useful information. It tells me, okay, I ended here and then I picked up reading right here. And the cool thing, the really quite amazing thing, is I can move this note, right? I can move it within para. Maybe I have a project that it's related to, or an area or resource. In fact, I want to move this note. I should move this note to where it's going to be most useful and relevant. In fact, even if I change the title, Readwise somehow still knows the note is there. It knows how to find it. And it will continue adding new highlights that you've taken, no matter what you call the note, no matter what you change the title to, and no matter where you move it. So you're never gonna get that broken link where you start making new highlights in an ebook and it has no idea how to find where that note went. Now, if you look up here at the very top, where is this note actually located now? Where does it begin? Where is it created in the first place? It's in a notebook, which is Evernote's name for a folder called Readwise. So if I click on that, this is the default folder where every single highlight that is imported by Readwise goes. So You can see this is a just mind-blowing treasure trove of knowledge. I mean, if I expand this out, this goes all the way back to, well, it says 2018, but it actually goes back a lot further. I think these dates were updated based on some syncing change, but this is many, many years. This is probably over a decade of my high quality attention that I've spent reading. You'll notice too that it's not just books. For example, this is a book called The Art of Gathering, but also something we haven't even talked about yet, which is articles. So if you read an article such as this one and take a highlight, which you can do in Readwise's very own reading app called Reader, it will do the exact same thing. It looks the same, acts the same, works the same with an online article as with an ebook. So actually many of the items you see here, such as this one and this one and this one and this one, are actually imported from online articles, or in this case, a tweet, or it could be all sorts of different websites. So we've looked at the import section. Let's also now look at the export. So I'll click here. You can see once again, there's many options. These are all the different places, the destinations that Readwise can send your highlights to. I personally use Evernote, that's why it's up here in the connected section. And they're adding more all the time, so you can check back to see if your note-taking app of choice is supported in the future. So let me show you what this looks like. I actually never have to do this. It happens completely automatically, but sometimes just to be sure it's working or just to see it working, I like to click configure, and you have a few options here. I have the export automatically one checked so that I don't have to do this manually. I also like to include highlight locations. Compact layout is always nice. And I don't want to select items to be exported. I want to select all of them to be exported. So if I click Start Export to Evernote, I'll need to log in. Once you've logged in, you'll see this little spinning wheel, and it says exported 0 new highlights to 0 notes. If I had new highlights that had not yet exported, it would tell me right there. And like I said, the reason these are both 0 is that this happens automatically without my involvement. So everything that I've shown you so far, which you could call connecting and syncing highlights, it was the original, the first kind of value add was to simply get your highlights from one place to another. But there's a second major way that I use Readwise, which is much more recent. Let me now show you the Read Later app, which is called Reader, that the company Readwise launched a couple years ago. Here's what it looks like. You can find it once you've created an account at read.readwise.io. So this one has some more things that you need to understand. Reader is a reading list. So not surprisingly, it is presented in the form of a list. There's a few different ways you can see the items you've saved. You can see this home view. You can see a feed which actually pulls in items that you're subscribed to, such as newsletters automatically, so you don't even have to save them. But I actually like that step of having to say, yes, I want to get to this later and hit save, which means I like the traditional library view. There's also a few, I think of them as filters over here on the left. Sometimes you're in a certain kind of mood, or you have a certain span of time, or you just feel compelled to consume a particular format of content. So this list you see currently is all different kinds of content, from podcast episodes to tweets to New Yorker articles to YouTube videos. But I can also filter by articles only, by books, by emails, by PDFs. You can see I don't really read emails or PDFs here, by tweets, by videos. You can also make a short list if you want to designate certain items as especially important, or you can create custom views. So this is one that I created with all audio. So sometimes I don't really care what kind of audio it is. Like it could be a Spotify episode or a YouTube video or even a tweet. I'm not really designating what form of audio it is. As long as it's audio, it goes in the to listen to filter, which is created by a tag that I created called to listen to. I'll just show you one example. If I click into this item, which is an interview with Rick Rubin on his philosophy of creativity, let's say I wanted to save this paragraph right here. I could select it with my mouse, and then it automatically gets highlighted. I don't even have to hit any button. I could also add a note or tags, but I don't bother with any of that. I'm really just looking for the highlight. You can see I've just exported to Evernote manually, and it exported one new highlight from one note. Well, guess which one that is? Let's head over to Evernote, and you can see here right at the top of my Readwise folder is the title of the original source, the link where it came from, and the exact passage that I highlighted. I have over 300 folders in my Evernote account. This is probably the most valuable. This one folder called Readwise. And I think it's the most valuable because I've done the most work to find this knowledge, right? Something that I wrote down, some random idea I had, while walking in the park, walking the dog, that has some value, but I consider the many hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of hours that I've spent reading all these books and articles to be much more hard won, much more hard fought. I've really fought, I've pushed aside so many distractions, I've dedicated and invested so much high quality attention to consume these in the first place. Why wouldn't I keep them? Why would I not save and preserve just the gems of insight, the nuggets of wisdom that these sources contain? So often when I'm looking for an answer to a question or a solution to a problem, I want to know what Rick Rubin did in his career. I want to know what Charles Eisenstein thinks about his philosophy of eating. I want to know how this family did overlanding in the Americas. I want to know Kim Stanley Robinson's ideas on a future sci-fi scenario in which we terraform Mars. I want to go back years and ask Daniel Pink what he thinks about how to persuade people and sell them on things. This is really like having a mastermind, a council of advisors of most of the greatest minds that I've ever had contact with, all of which I can search, I can annotate with my own thoughts, I can incorporate and integrate into whatever I'm writing or creating or trying to think about or decide on. Really, Readwise gives you almost the 80-20 value of an entire second brain with extremely small amount of effort. And you can do it for, a handful of dollars a month, which I think is just one of the best ways to spend your money to make sure that you're capitalizing on the value of something far more valuable, which is your attention. Or you could delete the highlight. What the heck is that? Breaking out a huge piece of furniture, put it in his trash can. It's typical Long Beach. It comes from the author in some cases as well. Oh my God. He has more furniture.